it's Sunday once again. It's a minute before 2 o'clock here in the UK, which is a minute before 9 in the evening in Manila. I hope some of you are still like up and joining us live today. It's also Happy Father's Day today, so maybe some of you in the Philippines are celebrating, out. And well, if you're out and not joining us live, you can catch up later on YouTube, because I'll be uploading this after the show. And also, I just want to say Happy Father's Day to all the dads out there, and mom dads as well. So anyone who's been a dad to someone, Happy Father's Day to you all. Anyways, I'm really looking forward to today's guest, because on his Discogs entry, it says that he's actually widely regarded as the finest drummer in Glasgow. And as most of you know, I mean, if you're friends with me on Facebook, you'll know how much I love Glasgow. And I was there last week, and I'm going again next week. So I'm really glad to hear that he's, regarded as the finest drummer in Glasgow. So my dear friends, please welcome Jonny Scott.
Can I just point out, I did not personally write that bio. I do not consider myself to be the finest drummer in Glasgow. There are many finer drummers than I.
Yeah, well, somebody else put it there, so obviously he's all like a fan of your drumming.
That's nice. That's probably my dad.
Yeah. How are you?
Very well. Are you?
Yeah, I'm fine. Thank you. And thank you so much for agreeing to do Ask the Drummer. I know you're very busy. I've just had a look at all the bands that you were in, and like all the things that you do, as well as a producer, as well as like doing the drums. But before we actually carry on, I just want to say a massive shout out to Richie Dempsey for the introduction, because that was in January at the Vaselines gig in Manchester. Because to be honest, I mean, I wasn't really expecting you to be there, because I saw them last year supporting the Soup Dragons, and it was Michael McLaughlin who's played drums.
Yeah, well, I wasn't expecting to be there. It was very, very last minute. So yeah, that was fun.
Yeah. How easy is it, or how difficult it is for you to do that? So, like, do you already know the songs?
I knew a few of the songs, I think the Vaselines are a great band, but I've never learned their songs before that, which is a different thing. So, I had a pretty good amount of time, and when I say that, I mean I had a couple of days to learn the songs, which for me is quite a long time. So, yeah, and I had a rehearsal, so it was all good. It was
Yeah, that gig was awesome. And I've got to say, I mean, having dinner with the Vaselines, that it was like, that's why for me, thank you so much, Richie Dempsey, for
Richie's a legend. Richie's a legend.
Yeah, that was so good. But anyway, so welcome to Ask the Drummer, episode 129. It's all about you, Jonny Scott. Right, so widely regarded as the finest drummer in Glasgow. But are you actually born and bred in Glasgow?
Just outside Glasgow, yeah. I'm from a small town called Curluke, so really not far away. Yeah.
Yeah, and are you from a musical family at all? Or?
Very much so. Both my parents are musicians. They both studied at what is now the Royal Conservatoire in Glasgow, so they were both classical musicians. My mum was a violist and my dad was a pianist, although he's more of a synth player, and hence all this stuff behind me, that rubbed off on me. He's into his prog and his Steely Dan and his all that stuff. Yeah.
Oh wow, that's amazing. But what got you into drumming though? I mean, did you not want to follow in your mom's or your dad's footsteps?
No, I think I played a little bit of piano when I was really young. But my mum and dad had a wedding band, and I was just upset whenever I saw them play. I was just obsessed with their drummer. So that just kind of I showed an interest in it, and they were really awesome. And they got me a little practice kit, a little rubber pads, and some cymbals, and got me some lessons. And I learned some beats and stuff. And you know, I
Yeah,
started
yeah.
really early when I was like 8 years old. So
And you're actually drawn to the drums instead of sort of like playing the piano and stuff. You're
yeah,
more comfortable.
that's
You're
just
more.
more fun to hit things with sticks, I think. You know,
Yeah.
very
What
fun.
was what was I didn't catch the name of the place you were born in, so like you were born in, but what was that like when you were growing up? I mean, like the music scene.
Um, there wasn't really a music scene where I grew up. The music scene was in Glasgow, so like, you know, it's maybe only like a 30-40 minute drive from Glasgow. So I was in a band at high school, like most people were, most musicians were. We played at school discos, and then we sort of sneaked in to play at like local bars and things like that. But there wasn't that much going on. Like we were really young, so it was just other friends that had bands, and we would do like
Yeah,
battle of the bands competitions, and you know, my dad would help us out rehearsing, and you know, all that.
yeah,
I remember like playing at like King Tut's and venues like that when I was like 16, and that was a big deal at the time to me because it's such a legendary venue, and
yeah, yeah.
sort of got
Oh
out
wow.
there pretty early on and got the experience in, you know, playing live. So
Oh wow. I haven't been to King Tut's, but that's one venue that I would really love to go
it's
to.
it's it's legendary. It's a great
Yeah,
venue. I've been to a lot of gigs there this year. Just there's been a lot of really great stuff on the last couple of years. I would highly recommend going.
yeah, yeah. But that one and Barrowlands as well, because I've heard so much about Barrowlands and of course King Tut's, because that's Oasis, right? That's where
Yeah,
they played in
that's where
Alan
they got
Page.
discovered. That's the story. That's why you know, I was a big Oasis fan when I was a kid.
Yeah.
So that was the big deal for us. It was like, whoa, we're playing King Tut's. This is where Oasis got signed. We're gonna get signed. Obviously we did. But that's what you think when you're like 15, 16 and you have dreams.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Aiden just said that sound and vision are great. Aiden is my tech support, so it's good that it's sounding okay. So you said before that you had drumming lessons,
Yeah.
and so it's not just sort of like self-taught. So you're sort of like. But what was your first band when you were 15, and did you actually manage to do some recording, or you say you were kids?
Yeah, the first bit of my high school band. I mean, we're going back quite a long time now, but yeah, we were called Genius, because I guess we had a very high opinion of ourselves. There's no music, like arrogant teenagers. Yeah, there's probably no music out there, thankfully, for anyone to listen to. But there are recordings somewhere buried in a box deep within, I don't know, at the back of my garage or something.
And you were like 15 when when you were in Genius.
Maybe started when I was 13 actually, and then
Oh,
stopped.
God.
We stopped being a band when I went to uni when I was like 17. Yeah, so
Yeah. And well, on Discogs, there's quite a lot of bands that you were in. And from sort of like I Googled most of them. And from what I gathered, I mean, the first one that's actually done some sort of like, recording and it was there is a band called Julia 13.
yeah,
But
yeah.
apparently that's so was that your first band or
I was in a few bands at university. So before that, this is where I met the guys from Julia 13, and this is going to branch out into all sorts of things because there were a lot of people on that music course that I ended up being in a lot of other bands with, and I'm still in a band with. So, yeah, I'm sort of, yeah, I was playing in like funk bands and jazz bands and whatever, like I could just to get better as a player.
yeah.
And then I met Martin from Julia 13 at the time. He asked me to play keyboards in his band, so I wasn't the drummer in that band. I was the keyboard
Oh, I
player.
see. Yeah.
And yeah, so we did a lot of shows and kind of we made an album. And Ian Cook, who I work with in CHVRCHES as well, he was heavily involved. Like he recorded our record, he helped us out a lot. So yeah, I met all those guys when I don't know, I must have been about 20, maybe 19 when all that started. So
Yeah.
yeah,
because it all seems like the members of the bands were all seem to be connected, so like to all the different bands that you were in.
that's
I mean,
kind of Glasgow for me. I think everything is so so I guess incestuous. Everyone's so connected. It's such a tight scene, you know. Everyone knows each other, and yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's one that I thought it's got a really funny name for a band. It's called Take a Worm for a Walk Week. But
yeah.
When I looked it up, it says that it's only one guy. But then he had
what does it say? Who's the guy?
I was like, I can't remember now, but it was all like it's just the one person, but it's like it's got other musicians involved in it. So is it a proper band?
That was a band. There were 4 of us. Yeah. So
okay.
Yeah, that was like just after Julia 13. I think I started playing in that band. But that's like, you know, fairly extreme music. We played like really short, really fast, really loud songs, like almost like grindcore, kind of hardcore stuff. We loved bands like The Locust and Converge and all kinds of like mad stuff. So that was a really good laugh. I just got to play like super, super fast and hard.
And you were the drummer. You were the drummer in that band. Because there's a split 7-inch with DeSalvo.
Yeah.
In that one. And I remember because DeSalvo's like Richard Dempsey's band.
It is, yeah. I still am a huge fan of DeSalvo. I think they're one of the best bands anywhere. I absolutely love them. So yeah, they helped us out really, really early on. The DeSalvo guys, they like put us on with them and got us gigs and stuff. And yeah.
And is that how you got to know Richie?
Is it? Possibly, yeah. I think maybe that's when I first met Richie, but I ended up doing a lot of touring with Richie when I played for Emma Pollock from the Delgados. Richie was her front of house and tour manager for a very long time, so I spent a lot of time in a van with Richie. So
yeah. Where did the name come from, though? That Take a Worm for a Walk Week. It's quite a mouthful as well.
It's a really terrible insult from the movie The Karate Kid. You know, The Karate Kid. So it's like someone shouts, "It must be take a worm for a walk week," as an insult to Daniel from The Karate Kid. That's why it's called Take a Worm for a Walk Week.
Oh really? Oh, God. I love Karate Kid. I mean, dude, like I grew up in the 80s, and that's like one of our, you know, most favorite films of all time.
I think that's why we kind of referenced a film that we all loved, I guess. I think it was Jonny, our guitarist. Jonny Docherty, who now plays bass in the Twilight Sad as well. He's an excellent musician.
So what happened to that band now? Are you still sort of like
I think we did like 3 albums together. We did a lot of touring, and I don't know, I think we all just got quite busy doing like I started doing a lot of session work and a lot of touring, and I was away a lot, and I don't know, it just kind of disintegrated. We're all still friends. We all still see each other. You know, I've played other bands with all of those guys since.
And they're still also like playing in other bands themselves. And
yeah, pretty much. Yeah, our singer Joe is like, he does like kind of more like ambient kind of experimental music now, and Ian, our bass player, doesn't play so much anymore, but Jonny, like I said, he plays in the Twilight Sad at the moment, and he's got a couple of other projects on the go.
Because I mean, you're quite young. It's like you're only in your 40s, right?
Wow.
I mean, it's like Glasgow is actually famous, like a postcard records and all that with orange juice and things. But yours is actually, it's like this almost like a second wave when your group and all your sort of musicians from that period, from that time.
Yeah, it was definitely like a different kind of scene at that point. I kind of missed that sort of golden age, I guess. Like I wasn't really around for a lot of that. So I don't know, like I think because I was playing in like a heavier band at that point more than anything else, it was a different scene, do you know what I mean? Kind of the hardcore DIY scene in the UK. It was like we were playing at a lot of like parties and like squats and sleeping in the van and all that kind of stuff. It was a very different thing. I didn't really get into the sort of Glasgow indie scene till about 2007 when I started playing for Emma. So like that was when I kind of met that kind of side of the
Yeah.
indie pop.
Yeah, there's another one before I actually go to. I think this is this band that I was going to mention after this one is the one that you actually founded yourself. But there's another one called Strike the Colors.
Yeah.
Again, the members just seem to be from the same group that you were in or the same band that you were in.
Yeah, it's all again. It's very connected. So like. Strike the Colours is technically Jenny Reeves' project, and Jenny's actually my partner. Like she lives with me. Like we've been together for like 12, 13 years or something.
Oh, right.
Like I met her through that band. Like she asked me to play drums on her record, and I played drums on the record. We became friends. We did some shows, and we've ended up, being together actually.
Yeah. Oh, that's brilliant. Is that gone now, or is that?
It's not gone. It's just one of those things. Again, everyone's busy. Like Davey McCauley, who plays guitar, he's got a lot of other projects as well. He's working on a band called Afterlands at the moment with a guy called Rick Redbeard from the Phantom Band. If you know that band from Glasgow, they were on Chemical Underground. Fantastic band. I actually really briefly played with them as well. So, but there's like. Everyone you mention, I'll be like, oh yeah, I played in their band at one point. It was just, I played for absolutely everyone at one point. I said yes to everything, and people for some reason asked me. So I'm very lucky,
Yeah. I mean, I think you should also all these bands should be added to your Discord century because there's really quite a lot of them in there. But this next one that I wanted to ask you is, it did say that you're the founding member of Olympic swimmers.
Yeah.
But I think before that, because when I googled Olympic swimmers, it says something that there's it's a Bad Dancer, another band that you were in before Olympic swimmers.
Yeah, so that was essentially the same people but a very different sounding band. So Bad Dancer there were four of us. It's me, the bass player Graham Smiley, who I still play music with, Susie Liddell on vocals, and Simon Liddell, who ended up playing with Frightened Rabbit. He was the guitarist. So that was a bit more like, we were kind of like, I don't know, I don't want to call it punk, but it was like way more like in your face, like pretty simple, like straightforward songs. It evolved into a band, Olympic Swimmers, which was more like, I guess, a bit more folk tinged and like kind of structurally a bit more interesting,
Yeah. But Bad Dancer didn't seem to have, you didn't record anything because there's no entry on Discogs about Bad Dancer, but Olympics.
We did some demos and stuff, and it was more of a fun thing. Like I was in Bad Dancer at the same time that I was playing for Julia 13 and Take a Worm for a Walk Week, and maybe was playing for Emma at the same time. Like I was doing a lot of things at the same time, so I think we were just doing it for fun as friends, Bad Dancer, and I think we should have spent more time on it, because sometimes I go back and listen to those demos and there's some really, really great ideas in there, and I think we had something cool. We didn't take it seriously. We were just having fun, which is
Well, you could always release it now, because a lot of the bands are doing it at the moment, because they didn't do it back then. But now that if they still got the masters or the master copies or anything, they can just reissue it. Have it like a record store day or something.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I don't know who would be interested, but yeah, sure.
Yeah. But you're also, I mean, you're a touring drummer for so many bands and like artists as well. I mean, I'm gonna start with your drumming career is absolutely amazing. It's like, I'm gonna start with the Kills. So, because they're quite big on there, they're like it's an American band, isn't it?
Half and half. So there's two of them. One of them is American, and one of them is English.
So how did you get into playing drums in the Kills?
It was probably through a guy called Scott Patterson, who was the singer in a band called Sons and Daughters, a Glasgow band.
Yeah.
So Scott, I guess he didn't really know me, but he'd heard my name. The Kills needed 4 drummers, actually, and he asked me to be one of them. So Scott somehow ended up in charge of wrangling together 4 drummers from Glasgow, of which I was one, and I got my friends Peter Kelly and Ross Rankin involved as well. So that was how it started, and we did this sort of choreographed kind of standing up, like Mo Tucker style, like 2 floor toms and a snare. It was all very choreographed. You know, we would like hold our hands up at the same time and kind of hit things and throw sticks, and we all dressed the same. It was like leather jackets and a little sort of bandana, red bandana. We would like sort of a little drum arm back.
Like a marching band.
Yeah, like a stationary marching band. Yeah, that was the yeah.
Wow, and that's, and is that how the Kills or like do their gigs live? They always have 4 drummers, or
not anymore? No. So that was like it was the end of they had a record out called Blood Pressures, and it was sort of the tail end of that campaign. They got the 4 drummers involved, and then when that campaign finished, they went and did another record called Ash and Ice, and it had a lot of live drums on it. And they ended up asking me to play drums, like just playing kit with them. So I ended up being just their drummer, and Scott Patterson ended up playing bass and keys with them. So me and Scott were the rhythm section, and we did that for what, like 2 or 3 years, I think. And it was really fun. They're such a great band. Like people, and they'd never had a drummer before, so they went from having no drums to having 4 drummers to then having me. And I think they're now back to having no drummer. They really left a bad taste in their mouth. They were like, ugh, drummers, ugh.
See, that's the thing that I found. There's an article that says that you're the go-to drummer for bands who never had drummers.
It seems to be a thing. It seems to be a thing. I don't know why that is. I like to think it's because when I do play drums for bands, like I really try not to get in the way of the music. So, you know, with the Kills, I didn't want to I never did anything fancy on top of what they were doing. I was just playing the drum machine parts and trying to complement what was already there, which is what I do with CHVRCHES as well. You know, that's a little more technically involved than the Kills setup, but same idea. I don't want to be like, hey, look at me, and doing like fills all over the place and distracting. So I guess that's why.
So, so technically speaking, you're just doing the because they use drum kit. No, what do they call it? Computerized thing. So technically, you're doing what the computer was all like doing, and then you're playing it live.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, with like triggers and stuff. So I'm like, you know, I've got like triggers on my drums that kind of trigger the sounds of the original sounds from their old drum machines or whatever it is they used. So it's like a hybrid of both things.
Oh wow, that's amazing. But with all these bands that you sort of like play drums for, and I mean, like with the Vaselines, you must like the bands that you're going to be playing, and before you actually accept the job, or have you ever sort of like accepted something? So like you think, I don't really like this music, but
you know, I'm very, very lucky, and that maybe happened to me when I was a lot younger, and I was doing just like whatever, like wedding gigs and whatever, like pub gigs and stuff. But as for my sort of professional career as it is now, I've never done a show with an artist that I've thought, I'm not sure about this. Like everything I've done, I've been very lucky in that I've already liked it, or I've listened and gone, wow, this is really cool. I'm excited. So yeah, I've had a lot of my sort of favorite bands have asked me to play drums for them, and I've just had to keep very quiet about the fact that I was a fan. You know, I just had to sit there and pretend that I played with Idlewild for like a summer in like 2009, and I was a huge Idlewild fan growing up. So when I got asked to do that, I had to be very like, you know, nonchalant, pretending that I was a fan. But I was totally a fan. I knew all the songs like perfectly. So when they asked me to play with them, I was like, easy, I know this, you know.
But that helps you. That helps if you're already a fan and you already know the songs. And
it does, yeah. It really helped, you know. And it's really exciting when you're playing music that you already love. And same with the Vaselines, you know. I was so excited to be asked to do that at the last minute. You know, covering for Michael. You know, he couldn't do it because he was unwell. So I'm always happy to jump in on shows like that and play like you know, excellent songs with excellent people as well. You know, that's
Yeah.
the other thing. Like, everyone I've worked with has been so cool, such, you know, so nice and so kind. It's great.
Yeah. Well, speaking of the Vaselin's gig, that was in January of this year. At the Deaf Institute, that venue is absolutely amazing. If you're at the front, you can see what the drummer is doing. And that's when I actually realized I mean, I've tried playing drums in the past, like this is like early 90s or something, and I really couldn't do it. And then it made me realize I really there's no way I'm going to do it, because, you know, I could see the bass drum and I could see you, so like, you know, when you're sort of like doing the bass drum, and I was trying to copy it and trying to sort of, like I simply couldn't. But there's something about that, because it's a clear thing. It hasn't got any name on it. I could see that the pedal, the drum, is it a pedal? You call it a drum pedal, the one that hits it.
Yeah.
It's sort of like but it's like it toggles. Is that a typical sort of like thing? It doesn't just sort of like bang, bang, bang.
So I mean, there's a few different ways to play, to use a kick drum pedal, and like the way that I play is called, you know, I play off the beater. So you can either do what's called burying the beater. So where, say this is the kick pedal and this is the drum head. So if you bury the beater, you kind of hit it and leave the beater on the head, and you get a very dead sound then. So I don't play like that. I play like sort of like, you let the sort of kick pedal kind of come back, and it lets the drum sing out a little more. So that's probably what you were seeing, I think.
Yeah. I was sort of like, I was fascinated by it, because I've always, whenever I go to a gig, I always sort of like make sure I see the drummer. So like, see what, because I just think it's, you know, drummers are really cool. But at the Deaf Institute, because it's so high, the stage was so high. I mean, the eye level is actually where the drummer, you know, where the drummer is.
Yeah, you're looking at everyone's feet. Yeah, it's a very high stage. Yeah. No, I've never actually watched a show in there. I've played there a few times, but I'd love to see a gig in there, because you've got that kind of terraced bit at the back as well. So, you know, you can kind of sit down, and that's more my vibe. I like to sit down.
Oh yeah. No, I always want to make sure that I'm at the front, so I can. I'm being small as well, you know.
Oh yeah, you've got to. You can't have any people standing in front of you. I'm also quite small, so I understand.
How long does it normally take you to sort of like learn? Say, you've also played drums for Mogwai as well.
Yeah.
And are you like a fan, like Idlewild? Are you a fan of Mogwai?
Very much so. So that was another one that was like, you know, I was so excited to get that phone call. You know, it was, you know, not great circumstances for the band. So Martin Bullock, who plays drums for Mogwai, injured himself on tour. Like, he pulled his Achilles or something, so he couldn't play drums. I got a phone call on like a Tuesday, Wednesday morning. I was teaching at the time, teaching drums. So I got a phone call at like 7 in the morning, and it was from their front of house guy, Kenny, who I knew pretty well. And like, he's like, "Hi Johnny, what are you doing for the next few weeks?" And I was like, "Well, just kind of working and whatever, nothing really going on." And he's like, "Do you want to play drums for Mogwai like tomorrow?" And I was like, I didn't really think about it. I was just like, "Yeah, absolutely." I'd just woken up and like kind of turned to my girlfriend and was like, "I think I'm going on tour with Mogwai." And she was like, "What?" I was like, "Yeah, I guess I'd better like learn the fucking songs." So, you know, that was pretty stressful. I learned the songs without playing them on drums. I had to just sort of, I was on a flight that night just listening to the songs over and over and over. You know, it was like a 30-song set list I had to learn overnight with no time to play them on kit. So I just internalized it, you know, had the songs on repeat. I made some notes on the plane. I got to the show. We did like an extended sound check, and I somehow got through that first night. The first gig was in Hamburg, I think, and I've never been so terrified in my life. It was it's really quite traumatic. I was like absolutely shitting myself. But you got through okay. We got through it, and then, like, you know, luckily Martin was there, Mogwai's drummer, to give me a hand, and you know, he was great. He was kind of like there for support and helping me with like when to change parts, because, you know, they don't really have vocals Mogwai. So normally when I'm learning songs, I run on like vocal cues. So I listen out for certain lyrics. Like that's
Yeah,
what I did with Vaseline, say, when I had to learn their songs really quickly as well. So I would like,
yeah.
what I'll do is write down a lyric, and that'll be the lyric that I'm like, okay, when you hear that lyric, the chorus is coming in, or the chorus is finishing, or whatever. But with Mogwai, I couldn't do that, so I had to like actually properly learn. It was
Oh, wow. That's just incredible. So like learning it overnight. And
yes, I actually don't know how I did it, honestly. Like, I don't know if I would do it again. It was really stressful. It's horrible. Like, playing the shows was great, but that first show, I've never been so terrified in my life. It was, yeah.
It must be a relief. So like when you finish the set, it was like, I can relax now. But then you have to do it again.
Yeah, I think I drank a bottle of whiskey after that show to myself. I was like, fucking hell. Yeah. No, that was a really great tour. That ended up being like such a great laugh. I didn't really know those guys.
Yeah.
Knew their tech, Alan Stewart, who played in DeSalvo and also in Idlewild. So Alan was Mogwai's guitar tech at the time, and I knew Kenny, the front of house guy. So I knew some of the crew guys, but I didn't know the band particularly well. So it was nice to get to know them, and they were super cool, and they were great with me. You know, I ended up doing, I think I did 2 weeks in Europe and then about 3 weeks in the States with them. We did like Coachella Festival and stuff like that, and you know, it was a really, really fun time.
Oh wow!
Some of my favorite music. I absolutely love that band. Still do.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, another thing that I wanted to ask you is like when you're doing the drumming for Mogwai and the original drummer is there, how daunting or how so like how is it so like when you can actually see the drummer who's doing, you know, who's done that part originally and then you're doing it yourself?
Well, I found that really, it's quite a rare situation. I found it really helpful, you know. It didn't feel like standoffish, you know, like I really tried to just play the parts how he would play them, you know. I didn't want to like be too distracting. Again, what I was talking about, just playing for the song and playing the parts the way they're supposed to be. And that was great to have him there for that, because sometimes I'd be like, am I going too far? And he'd be like, no, that's great. Or if I was going too far, he'd be like, oh, maybe like don't put so many fills in or extra snare drums or whatever. I'd like just keep it. You know, I found it really helpful. It didn't feel daunting. It actually felt more comfortable having him there. It was awesome.
Yeah, because I think I was like asked this when Noel O'Donnell, you know, playing for Jerry Love, when they were doing so like Teenage Fan Club song, and Brandon O'Hare was there. It was so like watching him do Brendan O'Hare's part. So after the gig, I saw like, how was that? How daunting was that? How nerve-wracking having the original drummer. So like watching you play.
Yeah, it must be a pretty strange one. I mean, I've definitely had moments where I've had drummers that I'm a fan of just watching me play, you know, with the Kills or with Churches or whatever, and I find that terrifying. You know, there's been times when I was on tour with the Kills where I would look to my left and like Dave Grohl was standing there watching me, and I'm like, God, it's one of my favorite drummers of all time. Taylor Hawkins is standing there. You know, like it's stuff like that gets me. I'm like, oh my God, wow. Pretend I'm not there, you know.
Gotta make sure that I do this really properly.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah. Well, now you're in in 2018, you're now like a full-time member of CHVRCHES.
I'm not a full-time member. I'm still a session musician, so I am the band's touring drummer. So, and I've played on the last record as well, and hopefully we'll play on the next record whenever they do that.
So there's still a trio.
Still a three-piece, live.
Right, because I was all like searching for it, and it was there's an article in 2018, so like an NME article saying that they've now added a drummer at CHVRCHES, so it's not a 4-piece, but it's
a 4-piece. It's a 4-piece live, and you know it feels like I'm part of the band when we play. You know, we've been doing it for a while now, and I know those guys super well. We play really well together. yeah, I love that gig. It's awesome.
Yeah, yeah. So what's are they playing or are you playing? Do you have gigs
Churches?
lined up?
Yeah,
Yeah.
not at the moment, no. So when was our last show? Last summer, I think. Our last show, we did some. We opened for Coldplay in Brazil and in some of Europe, and then we did a few headline shows. We did Glastonbury. That was last summer. We've not done any shows since then. So our singer Lauren is doing a solo record at the moment. So I guess like we'll do stuff once she's done her solo record. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Um, I mean, do you know why they have the V instead of U?
Yeah, I do actually. Yeah. As simple as like it's easy to Google. So like if you Google churches with a U, you're going to get churches as in
Oh, of course,
things. But if you Google churches with a V, you're going to get the band. So
of
you know
course. Because I
that's
remember.
and a stylistic thing. It kind of looks cool or whatever.
Yeah, and it's all caps, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's got to be all
yeah,
caps.
all shouting. Yeah, they're all.
Yeah. Because I remember that. I mean, I must admit that I think I've only listened to like one or two songs, but on Facebook, there's quite a lot of music groups I was like a member of a few years ago, and Churches is one of the like groups that's always being like shared. Because the music is very much like what we call new wave in the Philippines, which is like synth pop.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I am aware of Churches, but then so like with the V, because around the same time, or maybe like there's another band, American band called Always, and that's with a double V as well instead of a W.
Yeah, I guess it's the same thing. It's like Googleable, and it kind of So I think a lot of bands were doing that for a while, kind of omitting vowels and putting in V's and stuff. But yeah, I love Always. Great band, great band.
Yeah, well, that's good. But at least now I know why. So it's for like search purposes.
But it's not that interesting, really. I wish there was a better story, but that's it.
Yeah. Well, you're also a music producer, so you when you're not drumming, you're actually producing music, and you've produced an album for Ladytron. Is that right?
Yeah, I didn't do the whole record. So on the most recent two Ladytron albums, I have contributed maybe 2 or 3 songs on each of those records. So like, that came about because I worked with Helen Marney, their singer, on a solo record. In like 2014, maybe before. I can't remember when it was, but I think it was 2014. So we continued to collaborate and write together. So, Helen and I wrote some songs that ended up being Ladytron songs, basically.
Yeah. They're brilliant, Ladytron. I saw them, I think this year in Manchester. I mean, again, I only know 17, so because that's really popular, that song.
Great one, yeah.
Yeah, but when I saw them in Manchester live, I thought, oh my God, they're absolutely amazing. It was
yeah, their drummer Pete is one of my best friends, and also one of my favorite drummers like ever. Not just my favorite drummer in Glasgow. Absolutely love his playing. You should get him on the show. He's awesome.
Yeah, I saw him. So like, I thought, God, he's amazing. But I was so like waiting after the show, but none of them came out. And I was because what I always do it. What I always do is so like I'll go to the gig and then I'll see them, wait for the drummer to come out. But I think he was just really busy packing the stuff.
Probably, yeah. I don't know what.
Yeah.
Who knows what Pete was up to? Who knows?
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna sort of like see if I could find him on Facebook or maybe get a contact detail and ask
I'll connect you with Pete.
Oh, brilliant! That's very good because I really enjoyed that gig. But have you ever sort of like toured with them or have you done some drumming? Yeah, no?
Nope, never played live with them. It's always been studio and only ever with Helen. Like so, it's just like Helen and I will collaborate, and she'll maybe send a few of the songs that we've worked on to the rest of the on and be like, "What do you think of these?" And they all put songs into a pot for the next record, and I've been lucky that they've picked a few of mine, and I'm actually working with Helen at the moment on some new songs that may eventually be Ladytron songs on their upcoming record, which I think they're about to start working on. So
yeah.
It's really fun. I love writing with other people and sort of especially for other bands and trying to get into a different headspace. It's fun.
Yeah. They're a Liverpool band, right?
Yeah,
Glasgow.
Helen is Scottish, so their singer Helen is Scottish. She lived in Glasgow for a long time. She now lives like a little bit more north of Glasgow, but yeah, they are a Liverpool band. They formed in Liverpool, but yeah, Helen's Scottish.
Yeah. I also found out that last year there's Sky documentary about Fred West. Glasgow Girls, it's called, and you did the soundtrack. You and Helen.
Yeah. Another collaboration between Helen and I. Yeah, that was really fun. I mean, when I say it was really fun, it was really quite distressing because the subject matter is so heavy. You know, like we spent a good few months, you know, watching footage of this horrible person doing horrible things and all the awful stories about everything he got up to. And you know, the music that we wrote for that, the brief was to be kind of like, I don't know, let's be super dark. The references were kind of Twin Peaks, The Return soundtrack and things like that. So, textures and horrible sounds. So it was quite a dark place to live in for a while.
So he actually lived in Glasgow.
He did, yeah.
I've not heard of that documentary before, but it's only when I was Googling yourself that I thought that sounded sort of like interesting to watch. And
it's interesting, you know. It's kind of, I guess he kind of learned how to be a serial killer in Glasgow, and no one ever really kind of pursued this. That's kind of what the documentary's about. He preyed a lot of women in Glasgow first and manipulated them, and you know, they ended up being his victims. It's a horrible story, but it's worth a watch, you know.
Yeah, I'm just sort of like wondering, is it just on Sky or is it still available, or is it?
I don't know actually. It was a Sky Documentaries thing, the Sky Documentaries channel. I'm not sure if it's still up.
Yeah, it's because we don't really have a TV. That's why I've not heard anything.
That's a good thing.
It was last year, wasn't it? It was released last year.
Yeah. So I was working on that with Helen, but like kind of between tours, like CHVRCHES were in Brazil a lot of the time. Actually, we were doing that Coldplay tour, so you know, I was kind of playing that show, getting back to my hotel room and like editing stuff and sending it back and forward and tweaking bits and sending them to Helen. And you know, I was in two places at once at that point.
Is that something that you always wanted to do, like doing soundtrack or you know, for films and TV?
I think it's something that I'm drawn to for sure. It's never something I thought I would end up doing, you know, until quite recently, until I got the opportunity. You know, I was just like really lucky to have the opportunity, and it was with Helen as well. She's really got me involved, and I'm very grateful to her for that, because it's something that I'd love to do more of. Yeah.
Oh, that's brilliant. Because I know Simon Finley from Echo and the Bunnyman. He also does things like that. He does sort of like music for films and like Netflix production and things like that. So I was all like thinking it's gonna be a drummer thing.
Yeah, probably.
drummers love to sort of like get involved, because I think Francis McDonald also does music for films, and you know, from Teenage Fan Club.
Right.
He does things, he does things like that as well. So, you know, they're very creative people. Are really cool. That's why I always say drummers are the coolest people, because they don't
never underestimate a drummer. We've always got other things.
Yeah, that's right. and also, you taught drums in high school apparently for a long time.
Yeah, for a really long time. So that was what I did to kind of sustain a living, to pay my rent for the longest time when I was playing in bands like, you know, Taking for What Week and Olympic Swimmers and Julia 13. I was teaching maybe 2 or 3 days a week, just teaching drums in high schools, and sort of somehow managing to get time off to go on tour with like Emma and, you know, Mogwai and stuff like that. And it got to a point where I couldn't continue teaching because the touring just got, you know, it was touring or teaching, and then, you know, it's a no-brainer really for me against teaching. But, you know, my thing has always been playing live and performance. So
yeah.
I think twice about that one, really.
Yeah, but what was it like? Because you were teaching high school kids, weren't you?
Yeah.
Were they receptive, or were they sort of like really, you know, like they wanted to be there and they wanted to learn, or is it just part of the curriculum?
It's kind of a bit of both. I think I had a lot of pupils who are still playing. They've turned out to be really great drummers, and I'm really proud of that. And there's some that were just there because they had to be, but it was also, you know, they would get out of whatever class that they hated. You know, they might be in like maths or something. No offense, maths, but, you know, I personally, when I was at high school, loved getting out of classes to go and get my drum lessons. But that's because I loved drums. But a lot of the kids I was teaching were just like, cool, I get to go and like hang out with that weird guy that plays drums for instead of learning about, I don't know, Pythagoras. So there's a bit of that going on where, you know, they would just try and talk to me for half an hour rather than actually learn anything. So I enjoyed it. It's great, you know.
Is that something that you like to do again if you get some maybe time off? Or
Nah.
No.
I think like I wouldn't not in schools. I didn't enjoy teaching in high schools, mostly because I didn't have a very good time at high school myself. So
I see.
for me,
Okay.
being in a high school environment was always slightly triggered and a little bit like stressful. So I would probably give drum lessons again, but privately with people that really want to learn. You know, I've been thinking about it because I have time at the moment because churches aren't touring.
Yeah.
You know, I've been like producing stuff and doing a lot of like remote drum recordings for people from a home studio. Like you can't see it in here, but there's like my drum kit's just over there and it's always ready to go. So
yeah,
you know, maybe I'll teach again, yeah, but not in schools. It's too many rules. I don't like rules.
Like a one-on-one tuition.
Exactly, yeah, because I love that. You know, the teaching is really satisfying when someone actually wants to learn, and like the kind of satisfaction you get watching somebody improve and get better and continue to do it. You know, when I see some of the people that I've taught still playing shows, you know, they're out there playing gigs, playing at festivals and stuff like that, and they're getting good gigs now, and like that's great. You know, I feel like I've done something good. You know?
Yeah. I feel like I was the one who taught him how to play.
Yeah, a little bit. I'm like, well, look, hopefully some of the knowledge that I passed on was useful.
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned earlier that I did try to sort of like learn how to play the drums because I've always been sort of like fascinated. I've always wanted to be one as well, to be in the band, you know, so like, but it's just not for me. I mean, it's like,
what do you think it is? Is it the coordination? Do you think?
I think it's just sort of like I just love watching the drummers so like play. Like, well, I'll go, you know, I used to sort of like when I did a crash course on drumming, the teacher was just so good. So he was showing me all these sort of like things, saying, okay, you do it. And I'm like, no, can you do that again? Can you play?
Yeah.
So do you think it's something that it's in you? It's got to be in, you know, to be a drummer or to be a successful drummer. It's got to be in you. I mean, yes, you can learn it. You can go and sort of like have lessons, but it's got to be in the person. It's a gift, isn't it? It's like, you know, you've got the talent.
Yeah, to an extent. I think with any instrument or any form of art, really, like you've got to have, like, first and foremost, you've got to really, really want to do it. But, you know, some people are inherently good at stuff. You know, like I guess for me, drumming just worked for me. Like I very quickly got the hang of it. Like, you know, I was only 8 years old when I started learning, and I kind of it felt really natural. So I guess, yeah, you know, that is a thing. But I also, like, that was all I ever wanted to do. After that point, I was like, this is it. I'm not interested in anything else, you know. So
yeah, it's just fascinating. Musicians really fascinate me because, like what you said before, that learning 30 songs overnight. I mean, surely not everyone can do it.
I would like to think not everyone can do that. That was, I mean, that's a very extreme example, but you know, I'm pretty good at like memorizing songs, and like I've got like sort of a photographic memory for music, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I'm not good at remembering people's names or remembering dates or remembering where I'm supposed to be on a certain day, but I'm very, very good at remembering songs and drum patterns, and I don't know why. That just makes sense to me. It works.
Do you read notes? Can you read sort of like drum notes?
Yeah, I can. Yeah, I've not really had to for a while, but I mean, it's helpful to be able to do it sometimes. Like if I've got time to learn, like a band's songs, then I will sometimes notate things because it sort of drills it into your head. You know, when you write something down, you're like, I don't know, I feel like you're kind of, it helps you soak it up a little more. So sometimes I will transcribe parts, but I never ever play live with a drum part in front of me. Like I feel like that's like a barrier to you and the audience having like a piece of paper there and you're sitting looking at a thing. You know, you want to be in the moment and performing, you know. So I never use dots live ever.
Wow. Oh, wow. Well, I've got, so like, I know it's nearly 3 o'clock and you've got somewhere to go to as well. But I've got these questions, regular questions that I always ask the guests. And you mentioned earlier when you were playing in the Kills, you know, when you saw like 4 drummers and you were like throwing sticks. so do you twirl when you play drums? And you know, so
that was the only point that I've ever done stick tricks because it was part of the show. I feel like whenever I've done that before, it's failed and I've looked like an idiot, so I don't try it anymore. I'll sort of do that. Sometimes at sound check, I'll do things like that. You know, I'll hit a snare drum and throw my stick as high as it'll go and see if I can catch it, but never live because I can't pull it off. I'm not that much of a showman. I like to do that. There's a band called the New Pornographers, a Canadian band that I toured with when I was playing with Emma Pollock. It was my first US tour, US and Canada, and I'd never heard of the band, but I very, very quickly fell in love with them and their drummer, Kurt, who was just constantly doing stick tricks. You know, they're not like a flashy band, they're like a kind of indie pop band, but he was constantly like bouncing his sticks off the floor and like picking up a beer and like chugging a beer and like being a total clown and throwing his sticks around. And I found that really, really entertaining. I love watching drummers that do that stuff. It's great.
Yeah, same with me. It's like I always find it so like entertaining and incredible when drummers sort of like do the twirling things. And I always wait for that bit, and as much as possible, I try to sort of like capture it when they twirl, but you can never tell where they're going to do that because sometimes it's like when there's like a gap in the song, and then before they actually hit the drums, they will just do a bit of twirl and then boom.
It's unpredictable. No, I think maybe I'll do a sneaky twirl sometimes, but never like obviously. It's one of those things I do habitually, like in the way that I'll sit and like, in fact, I've got a guitar pick in my hand. This is something that I always sit and fidgeting with stuff. Like this whole time I've been sitting playing with a guitar pick. And if I've got a drumstick in my hand, I'll sit and twirl it. It's just, it's like a, I don't know. It's like a coping mechanism. It's something that...
Well, hopefully next time I see you, you'll be doing a bit of sort of like twirl, I guess.
I'll try and learn it. I'll try and get better. Work on my showmanship a little bit.
Well, my next question is drumming heroes, because you mentioned, you know, Dave Grohl and you know, Taylor. So any other sort of like drumming heroes?
Yeah, I guess from an early age, like I listened to a lot of Britpop in the 90s. So like, you know, I guess Oasis's second drummer, Alan White, was my first main influence because I loved that band so much. Like I would just play along to their records, to What's the Story, Morning Glory, like constantly. Then I got into like Green Day, so like Trey Cool, you know, I got really into like Dookie. That's how I learned to play fast, because I was like, you know, 13 years old, trying to play Basket Case or whatever. And I think it's they're one of those bands that are still like inspiring young drummers to play. Like there's still young drummers out there are like, I want to play basket case, and I think that's so cool. It kind of it just transcends generations. But yeah, so aside from all the sort of Britpop drummers of that era that I was into, I suppose like my dad was a big Steely Dan fan, and I am as a result. So a lot of this kind of session guys that played with Steely Dan, like guys like Steve Gadd, huge influence on me. Jeff Porcaro from Toto, huge. Like more, these are more of the sort of muso influences. And then I guess as I got older, I started listening to metal and like more kind of slightly heavier stuff. Like Jimmy Chamberlain from the Smashing Pumpkins is still one of my favorite drummers. I absolutely love his playing, and that's something that I'll go back to when I'm practicing. Every now and then I'll just stick on like Melancholy by the Pumpkins and just play through the whole thing, or try to, you know, see if it's still in there. Yeah, Jimmy Chamberlain. Later, probably guys like Jackie Liebezit from Can, when I sort of got into like more experimental music, you know, really love his playing. Abe from the Deftones, again, like more metal, but like I really love his drumming. He's been a huge influence on me. Yeah, there's a lot. I always find it hard to remember. There's probably like some big ones that I'll miss out, but
John Bonham,
yeah. I mean, there's obvious ones that are just like,
of
course John Bonham, of course, of course, Buddy Rich.
Yeah, that's right. It's always like the drummer's drummer, John Bonham, because every time I saw like asked a question, you know, so like included there, it's like John Bonham. And
well, I mean that's why I play the drums that I play. That's why I play those acrylic Ludwig kits. You know, that was John Bonham's thing, the Ludwig Vistelite thing. Like that was when I saw that kit, I was like, I want one of those kits, and eventually was very, very lucky to be endorsed by Ludwig, and I immediately bought a Ludwig Vistelite from them. Of which I think I've got 5 of those kits now. I took it.
Is there a big difference? I mean, depending on the brand of the drum kit that you're playing, can you actually say that there's a difference between, like, say, Ludwig, or is it Natal is the other one?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many, but I think, you know, but the difference between brands is really comes to personal preferences, because they all have their own layers of how good their kits are. So, you know, they'll have their pro kits, their kind of intermediate kits, they'll have basic kits. So they have like, you know, there's a bit of movement between each brand. But yeah, I mean, I would say that there is a difference in aesthetic more than anything. Like I've always loved the way Ludwig drums look and the way they sound. And like, I mean, probably like 80% of drums that you hear recorded are probably played on a Ludwig, because every studio has a classic Ludwig, and or at least a snare drum like a Ludwig Superphonic or something. You know, like I think that's like probably the most recorded snare drum of all time. And you know, they're just, I don't know, there's like a legacy there with Ludwig. I've always just been like, I want to be a Ludwig drummer. You know, I've always just thought they were like the coolest, and so I feel very lucky to be involved with them and to own so many of their kits, and I get to play them live. And
but being a drummer, if you were given, like, say in a festival that you can't really bring your own sort of like drum kit, and you know there's one drum kit there for every single band that's on, you know, that's going to be playing, can you make it sound like your own? Or
I mean, I could make.
How does that work? Because it's like,
I've not been in that position for a while. Actually, no, I was playing a show with Elizabeth Electra, who I've been producing with. She's got an album coming out soon. I was down in Brighton with her at the Great Escape recently, and we used a house kit for that. And you know, you never know what you're going to get. So, and I think was it a Natal? I can't remember. But I always carry like a little bit, those little like moon gel things. They're like little dampening pads. So I'll carry like tape and things. So I'll dampen the drums and make them sound as good as I can. But I think like if you're a good drummer, you can make any drum kit sound good. It doesn't really matter, you know.
Yeah, it's just fascinating, because there's so many different brands, and you know, drummers sort of like prefer their own sort of like their own brand of drum kit. But it's got to be so like, if you're given this kind of kit, I mean, you can still make it sound like like your own.
Yeah, it's always gonna. I think like it's always gonna sound like you, or you know, if I sat down to play a kit and then like say Pete that plays with Ladytron sat down and played the same kit, it would sound completely different because we are different players, you know. But that's one of the best things about drummers is you could swap out a drummer in a band and the band would sound very different even if you're playing the same parts, because there's so much nuance there to people's kind of way of playing and their touch and how hard they hit and how they hit, and I find that fascinating, you know.
Yeah, it is definitely fascinating. But are you precious with your drum kit? Have you shared your drum kit with other bands? Or
I'm not,
not really.
I'm not that precious. I mean, like, I've got to a point, and I don't want this to sound. I've got to a point where I don't have to share my kit. Like, I've not been in a position where I've been asked, "Can we use your drum kit?" Because like with churches, like, if we have an opening band, it's like they set up in front of us, so you know we'll do our sound check, and my drums and all our gear get covered by big black tarpaulins and no one touches them. So it's been a while since I've done a kit share, but I don't mind, you know. I think I'm happy for people to use.
You're happy.
The Vaseline shows, actually, sorry, I'm forgetting, like all the opening bands used my kit and I'm fine with it, you know. I'm not that precious as long as they're not like intentional. I mean, like, how much damage can you do to a drum kit, really, you know? You're literally you're beating the shit out of it, you know. It's what it's there for.
I remember sort of like saying when I went to see the Real People at the Deaf Institute, as you know, like the same venue, the skin on the bass drum actually sort of like fell apart.
that is a danger that someone will break one of the skins. Yeah, I always carry spares, so
yeah, and I mean, luckily, I mean, the singers, the Griffiths brothers, they just did an acoustic while they're changing the drum.
You've got to finesse that, keep the show going.
Yeah, keep the show going.
Technical issues happen. That's right.
Yeah, I suppose it is sort of like, you know, you can't really sort of like tell the other band or the other band's drummers, so like just be careful with my drum kit, because if you're just sharing one,
I do normally say, like, I'll just be like, maybe don't move this too much. The worst thing was always, I remember, and this is no disrespect to the left-handed drummers out there, but like, you know, if you're sharing a kit with a left-handed drummer who sets their kit up the opposite way, that was always a pain, because then you're like, oh great, I need to like completely set my kit up again. That I always hated that.
Oh, I see.
You know, because everything's flipped. You know, the snare drum's on the other side, the floor toms on the other side, the hi-hats are on the other side. So like, now use your drums, and then you watch them like move everything, and you're like, oh, I've only got like a 15-minute and I have to do all that. Lefties, come on.
Well, apparently, like Ringo Starr's a left-handed drummer. So.
Yeah, but he had the sort of manners to learn how to play right-handed.
Okay.
Yes. Actually, Pete that I keep talking about, he's a lefty, but he plays on a right-handed kit, like open-handed. So he doesn't cross his hands over. He plays open-handed. For you know, he's like, it's easier to learn on a right-handed kit, but you can still play left-handed and lead with your left. You know, some of my favorite drummers are left-handed. So.
Amazing. Like all these things that you've got to learn. I mean, as you can tell, I'm not really technically into sort of like the drums, but it's just amazing watching them. And then, you know, when you see them, so like sometimes they cross and then sometimes they just go like, you know, cross. But I thought it was just a style or something, but
it usually means left or right-handed, or someone. If I was playing open-handed, you would be that would be me trying to show off by playing the wrong way.
Next one is, have you ever had any disasters or accidents on your years of playing drums?
Probably. I think I passed out during a show once. Like I literally blacked out and fell off my drum stool once because I drank too much.
Not during the Mogwai one.
No, but I was close during the Mogwai. I don't remember the second Coachella set I did with Mogwai. I do not remember playing it, and I think I was telling Stuart. I see Stuart quite a lot now, and I was telling that to Stuart. I was like, man, I don't remember that gig. I was so hammered, like so, and this is not something that I do a lot, and it's very unprofessional, and I do not recommend people do this, but it was like, you know, it was just what was happening at the time. Everyone was drunk, and I don't remember that set, but my old band that you brought up earlier, Take a Worm for a Walk, we used to like get pretty smashed and play shows. That was the vibe. It was a bit chaotic. And there was a show we played in some horrible basement bar somewhere in, I don't know, some hellhole. And I just literally blacked out. I was playing so fast and so hard that I think I was like a little bit sick on myself. Then I just fell off my drum stool.
Oh, you're joking?
So that wasn't great.
So is this during the set, or is it like?
Yeah, it was during one.
You weren't able to finish it then?
No. It just you know, I just sort of got back up and we started again. The song was only like 30 seconds long, so whatever. I'm sure there's probably been worse things that have happened. I mean, like technical disasters. There was one of the more recent CHVRCHES shows when we were playing with Coldplay, like playing in a stadium, like mega stadium somewhere. Yeah. My in-ear pack stopped working, so I literally couldn't hear a single thing. Like, so, you know, you've got these little wireless packs in your headphones. My pack, I don't know, it ran out of batteries or something, and I had to play the last like chorus and outro in a stadium full of people, only being able to hear what was bouncing back from like 3 miles away off the back of the stadium. That was pretty bad. That was pretty stressful.
But did anyone notice?
Oh yeah, it was pretty bad. It was pretty bad. You know, like Martin from CHVRCHES like noticed, and he kind of ran over and was sort of like playing bass and like, you know, keeping me in time, but it was kind of too late. I'd strayed too far. So yeah, that wasn't awesome. Other disasters. There was a technical thing again with the Kills. We were opening for Guns N' Roses at London Stadium where West Ham play. And we were about to go on. We had this like sort of drum machine intro thing, and it was like this sort of beat from the first song, and it would be on a loop, and I would walk on first and I would join in, and then the band would come on and we would do the thing. And they started the track and the drums are playing, and in my ears I couldn't hear the click track. So I need the click track so I know what's going on, right? And I said to our tour manager, I was like, I can't hear the click. We can't start. I can't hear the click. I can't play this show without a click track. It's impossible. So he runs to the monitor guy, and all this is happening. Meanwhile, this drum loop is booming over this stadium. There's like 40,000 people in there at this point. This drum loop's just still going. It's still going. Everyone's like, what the fuck's going on? Our monitor guy's like, oh, it's the playback. And I was in charge of the playback. I was also the playback like tech, or what, not tech, but like, you know, I was running it. So I was in charge of that. So I had to walk on stage. This is like an actual like nightmare for me. I had to walk on stage in front of like 40,000 people on my own and try and fix the playback system on the laptop in front of everyone while people are like, whoa, what's this guy doing? And you know what? It wasn't anything to do with the playback. The monitors hadn't been patched properly, and they didn't realize that until about 10 minutes into me freaking out on stage in front of 40,000 people. It was still like a nightmare to me. I had to like lie down after that show. Like I was deeply traumatized by it. So like whoever patched that fucking stage, I hate you. Deeply traumatized by that. It was awful.
I mean, this is the thing that's actually fascinating about you having a show. There's so many things that's so like involved in it. You know, as a fan, you just go there and you see the whole thing, and you sort like, you know, hear the music and everything, and then the crowd. But you don't really actually sort of like get to see the technical side of it. And you know, if there's any problem that sort of like you don't know where it's coming from or anything, but it's just really fascinating. But I forgot to ask you earlier, do you get starstruck like when you go to, do you still go to gigs, and do you still sort of like
I still
bands?
Yeah, of course I do. Very much. I go to as many shows as I can, like local shows and whatever. I don't think I get starstruck. I had to like get over that when I started playing with bands that I was a fan of. So like, you know, I kind of, that mentality isn't in me anymore. There's some people that I meet that I'm like, holy shit, that's Iggy Pop, or holy shit, that's, I don't know, well, Dave Grohl or whatever. You know, like I've been really lucky enough to like meet a lot of my heroes and idols, and you know, like Churches did a song with Robert Smith. The Cure are my favorite band. Robert is like my absolute hero, and like, you know, we got to play a few songs with him live. We got to hang out with him. I've had beers with him. It's, you know, and I was maybe a little bit like nervous about talking to him, but he was so fucking cool that it very quickly. And you know, he's just, they're just people, you know, just like normal people that happen to be extremely talented, you know. So,
do you ask for photos?
Never, no.
No.
No, I feel like when I mean, I don't mind people asking for photos, but I think when you're like, especially if you're working with an artist that you're a fan of, like there's kind of a line there that you don't want to cross, or that I don't want to cross. So like, you know, I don't want to someone feel like, potentially I'd feel uncomfortable if I'm like, oh hey, let's get a selfie. Or I'm sure it'd be fine, but that's me. Like I'm quite a nervous, like worried person, so I don't want to like upset anyone. So I kind of never ask for pictures with people ever.
But you're okay with like me asking you for a photograph and other fans?
Yeah. I of course, like if anyone ever wants a picture with me, I'm absolutely happy to do it. Like always, as are every musician I've worked with is happy to do that. It's a privilege for people to want to get a picture taken with you. That's really cool. I'm just talking about in a sort of, say you're backstage at a festival and you see someone, you're like, no way, it's that guy. Like I try not to bother people because they're at work. You know, that's the sort of safe.
Yeah.
I think if you're at a show and like you're a fan of the band and you're waiting to meet them, like that's totally cool. I think that's awesome. You know, that's what keeps bands going, is people being fans and being interested in it. It's a wonderful thing.
Yeah, but if you're so like working together, it sometimes sounds like a problem.
Yeah, that's just like I just try not to cross the line between fan and, like, you know, colleague or whatever you call it.
Yeah. That's fair enough, because I always sort of like think, you know, if you're a fan of someone and you're a musician yourself, because I was in Glasgow last week, and I was so like you know, I went to the talk with Paul Hunley and John Maher and Stephen Pastel, and then seeing them so like saying how much they love Buzzcocks and things, it makes you think, oh my god, this is a Glasgow, you know, a Glaswegian legend saying how much he loved. So
I mean, we're all fans at the heart of it. That's it. Like, you know, every musician you can think of are, you know, they'll be a fan of someone. Like we all love music. That's why we do it. So
yeah, that's true. But you just sort of like don't want to show it as a regular fan.
I'm just quite a shy, nervous person, so I try not to get in people's way. That's all.
Yeah. Well, the last question, because it's nearly 1:15 now. The last question is, you mentioned earlier about sort of like passing out when you're at a gig and you're doing a set. Well, when Richard Dempsey was on the show, when I asked about advice to aspiring drummers and musicians, what he actually said is, don't drink before a gig.
Terrible advice. Always drink before a gig.
So what would be your advice to aspiring drummers or musicians in general?
Honestly, like there's a couple of bits. There's the classic, don't be a dick, just be nice. But from a sort of professional, like, playing point of view, play as many shows as you can, meet as many people as you can, like play for 5 bands at the same time. Like I've sort of like been thinking recently about how did I end up where I am, and it's because I just like kept playing shows and I kept meeting people, and I was very active in a scene. And you know, I would say just get out there and play with other musicians. Don't sit in your room and practice. You can be the best drummer in the world, but if you can't play with other musicians and if you can't perform for an audience, there's no point, you know. Like, get together with other people and make some sounds and make it like a communal thing.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Because yeah, you can sort of like just practice as much as you like. So like, but being on your own.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean, and there's nothing.
awesome.
There's nothing wrong with that if that's what you want to do. If you're happy being like a bedroom musician and just being like really flashy, and I would say if you want to have a career in music, then you've got to put yourself out there and meet people and do it. You know, don't
Yeah.
say no to anything unless it's really terrible.
That's amazing. Well, thank you so much. So, any gigs planned with any bands at the moment, or?
I am playing a show at Mogwai's Big City Festival at the end of the month. I'm going to be playing drums with Elizabeth Electra, who I mentioned earlier, who I've been working on. I've worked on her record that's coming out, and I'm working on another one with her. So I am going to be playing live with her at the end of the month.
Where's that?
It's in Glasgow. Is it Queen's Park? It's an outdoor thing in a tent. Great lineup like Mogwai, Slowdive, Beak, Nadine Shah, Elizabeth.
Oh,
There's a lot of it's a great lineup. It's going to be awesome. I think that's on the 28th or the 29th. I can't remember exactly. So yeah, I've got that, and I'm currently learning another band's songs for later in the year, but I can't say who it is yet. So
okay, it's a secret for that.
I'm very excited. Like I've got like a tour coming up later in the year with a really awesome band that I love. So
yeah. Well, that's good. Yeah, at least it gives you like plenty of time to practice instead of just learning 30 songs
yeah. It wasn't the night before, exactly.
Oh, thank you so much. And nothing as far as churches is concerned, there's nothing going on at the moment.
Not at the moment, no. But there will be. Stay tuned, I guess.
Yeah, we'll do. Well, thank you so much, and I really hope to see you play live again because you're absolutely amazing.
Thanks so much.
Your career is so incredible. So I hope to see you again soon.
You too. Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been lovely.
No, thank you so much for saying yes to Ask the Drummer. I'm really pleased that you did it. So thank you, and enjoy the rest of the weekend. You're not a dad, are you? Are you a dad? No. Okay.
Well, I'm a dad to like 3 chickens and 2 cats. So there's that.
Well, happy Father's Day. Well, enjoy the rest of your weekend, Jonny. Thank you so much.
You too. Thank you.
Yeah. See you again soon.
Bye.
Bye. Oh, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us live. That was absolutely amazing. Incredible sort of like drumming career. And as Aidan said, it's like very interesting conversation. And the tech problems that Jonny has mentioned to us, it's just sometimes you go to a gig and you don't really see these things. You don't get to find out about them. But I just find like drummers, when you go to any gig, you see a drummer and you just sort of like think, wow, that's incredible. I always say this, but they really are the coolest people on this planet. But anyways, thank you all so much for joining us live. And next week, we're going to have another drumming legend on Ask the Drummer. So I do hope you'll be back next week, and do keep an eye out for the guest announcement post on the Ask the Drummer page. I will do it sometime tomorrow. So thank you all so much. Once again, happy Father's Day to all the dads out there, and enjoy the rest of your weekend. And see you again. Hopefully, I don't want to forget this, but as always, love music, love life, love drummers. They're absolutely incredible. So see you all again next week. Bye for now. Bye.